Hey guys, this is Mel. If you're listening to this, you are about to hear a super special sneak peek of our latest bonus episode, but fair warning, this is just a sneak peek, don't hurt us. It's totally optional to subscribe, but if you're interested, you can check out our Patreon by searching Significant Lovers Patreon online. Hope you enjoy.
Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight? Are you sorry we drifted apart? Does your memory stray?
Who are we talking about today, Kel?
Oh my goodness. We are talking about a Wild West couple.
Ooh.
Today. We are going back to the Old West. We're talking about Annie Oakley. Have you heard of her?
Yeah, I heard her.
And her love, Frank Butler. Frank E. Butler.
I never knew that she was in a relationship.
Me neither. I'm just going to give a little backstory. I was not intending to do this couple by any means. They were not on the list. They weren't even on my radar, but I was randomly feeling the Wild West. I was in the mood to talk about it. Maybe because my dad lent me the book version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, and that has a lot of Old West, what's his name? Rick Dalton is like in a Western show. So, and then Killers of the Flower Moon was kind of an Old West thing we just saw. Beyonce's Gone Country.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a lot of Western stuff. Power of the Dog was like 2 years ago. Like, I don't know. The West is just on my mind. So I started looking up people from the Wild West, and I wanted to pick out a name I knew, like somebody notable that I'd heard of before, but a lot of the people I was looking up had kind of messed up love lives, like Butch Cassidy, Jesse James, Buffalo Bill, Calamity Jane. All these people like I'd heard of, they did not have very cute love stories. Sometimes they're pretty fucked up. I even thought about doing Sacagawea and her husband. I was like, I didn't know she had a husband. No, that was not a good story. So I was like, I don't know. And then I had always heard of Annie Oakley, but I honestly didn't even know who she was or what she was famous for. And I just started reading briefly about her and realized that she actually had a really cute love story.
Aww.
So wanted to share it with you guys.
So what 3 words would you use to describe this couple?
3 words I would use to describe Annie and Frank would be mutual respect. So that's 2 words. And rifles.
Rifles?
Yeah, rifles, like guns.
Oh, okay.
It's the Old West, right? Okay, so Annie Oakley, if you guys didn't know, she was a sharpshooter, and so was her husband.
Wait, what does that
Frank
mean?
Butler. So, yeah, that's not a type of person. I think this is definitely the first sharpshooter we've had on the podcast, probably the last. Sharpshooter is basically somebody who is skilled with a rifle at hitting targets, and that's their job. I mean, she would travel around and do all these shows where she would shoot moving discs or glass balls or birds. Sadly, I mean, that's kind of just part of hunting, I guess.
Wait, so like she did it for
would
entertainment, like to entertain people?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, probably the only one we'll cover.
Yeah, probably. You don't really see many sharpshooters these days.
No.
But she was considered the best sharpshooter ever, basically. Like, nobody could beat her. She was the best, and that's her claim to fame. And there was even a 1946 musical about her and Frank called Annie, Get Your Gun, which I've heard of before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I have not seen this movie, guys. I kind of want to watch it after I do this because I didn't want it to, interfere. Because I've heard that the way they depict her and Frank is, like, completely inaccurate, like, completely just changed their personalities. But that is the musical that has the song that goes, Anything you can do, I can do better.
Oh.
Da-da-da-na-na-na. Do you know that song?
I'm such an idiot. Why did I think that musical was like a spin-off of Annie the musical? Orphan Annie.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Orphan Annie is inspired by Annie Oakley. Who knows? I read that the sunglasses Oakleys were named after the founder. His dog was named Oakley Anne.
Oh, so interesting.
The sunglasses are kind of named after her, too. But I was thinking before I got started with this, because the thing is, Annie, even though she's associated with the Wild West, she wasn't actually a Wild West person. And we'll get into this later. But she wasn't actually an outlaw, like, out in a town on a horse, like, shooting at people after she robbed a bank or anything. She was famous for her skills at shooting and traveling and performing. And then I was just thinking, like, when was the Wild West? Like, when did it start and when did it end? And I'm sure people that, like, live out in Wyoming and, you know, the Dakotas and stuff, I'm sure they know this much better than us because we're from New England. But I just thought it was interesting because, like, the Lewis and Clark expedition was, like, 1804. So this is, like, when people define it as, like, when European settlers were settling in the western U.S. And I guess before there was, like, that much law enforcement, you know. The Oregon Trail was in use by 1830. So some people say that the Wild West was, like, over by 1890. But some people say it went on even through, like, the 1920s. So it's kind of like a vague time period. Kind of depends where you are and how you define it. But anyway.
And the Wild West was wild because it just, like, hadn't been explored as much yet, so there wasn't as much law enforcement and everything?
I think just because it was such a vast place.
There wasn't, like, surveillance on what they were doing.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I read that you would be surprised how much there actually was in certain towns, but I think just because it's so rural and people would just, I don't know, ride off. It was just a new way of life, I guess. But I don't think it was actually quite as crazy as people think it was, like shootouts in the street all the time, you know. But we'll get into it. Anyway, who the heck even is Annie Oakley? All right, I will have to stop the episode right there. Thank you so much for listening to the teaser. If you want to hear the full episode and many other bonus episodes, you can find them on Patreon. You can search Significant Lovers on the website or download the Patreon app. It works a lot like regular podcast listening apps. And we have tons of other couples on Patreon to listen to. So thank you so much for listening and supporting the show, and we'll get back together next week.